Yo, what is going on? PartTimerZack here. In today's video, I wanted to talk about what we can do to get a head start for our internal engine, the next event that's going to be coming after Fallen Star. You guys are probably wondering at this point, what do you do with the rest of your 11 days? Maybe you're at a point where you got all your memories and you probably got the live skin that you're kind of wanting, and you're kind of like, what do I do next with the time that I have in this event? More importantly, what do I do with the currency that I grind from the event? And I'm going to be talking about that and kind of giving you an idea. I'm also going to be talking about what we can do to get some BC in case you're kind of on the lacking side and you don't think you're going to quite make it for S Bianca. So first and foremost, what I want to talk about is making a list. This is something that I did not do in the Frozen Darkness event, and it kind of bit me in the butt. I would just kind of like, okay, I kind of need this. I think that I need that. And it really just bit me in the butt because I ended up having a lot more of one thing and not enough of one other thing. So the first thing that I want to talk about is cogs. Cogs is something that you feel like you have a lot. I have 1 million right now, but in the grand scheme of things, that is not a lot, especially when you get a new character. You're trying to max all the memories, you're trying to max the weapon, and you're trying to max the character, you know, skills, level, all that kind of stuff. Cogs cost a lot, and they start to get very steep very quickly when it comes to just getting into those higher tier parts of your character and kind of grinding them. You can never have enough cogs, so just make sure you're keeping an eye on your cogs and giving an idea of, okay, maybe I can fluctuate and maybe I can always have a little bit more of a reserve. So that's going to be the first thing in the checklist that I always kind of prioritize when it comes to maybe I'm getting a little bit low. I'm going to grab a couple of those boxes because they're 100,000 in the shop, and it does help out quite a bit. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my items, and I'm going to go down to item, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to see my overclocking material. So normally I have a pretty good base when it comes to the tier 1 of the overclocking materials, but you can see that I start to lack on the tier 2 one. So this is something that gets pretty steep pretty quickly when it comes to, you know, enhancing your memories, enhancing your weapons, and all kinds of different stuff that you kind of need to pay attention to if you haven't already. So this is something that you need to go in here and kind of just see, okay, I have a good rounded about of tier 1 and not so many of the tier 2. So I'm going to kind of prioritize getting some more tier 2. You can also see your EXPs here. This is something to give you an idea when you're living your characters. You know, I only have 4. So this is something that I can kind of grind on and kind of work on if I need to. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is weapons. So this is going to be weapon enhancers. You can see that there's quite a list here of the weapon enhancers that you have. So this is going to be more of an eyeball thing. If you want to kind of click through here and check them, each and every one of them, and count them yourselves, you're more than welcome to. But normally what I do is I kind of scroll through here and I get an idea. Okay, it does seem like I have quite a bit. Now the thing is, these are tricky though, because you always seem like you have a lot until you get to kind of the further part in weapon enhancements and stuff like that. It takes quite a lot to kind of get to the next level. So just pay attention that, you know, hey, I have a good amount. Maybe I need to kind of work on it if it's the last thing that I need to work on. Now, memory enhancers are going to be a little bit trickier because you have to kind of go through here and you have to go down here to memory enhancer. Now, the cool thing is it will give you a number though. So like 91, for example, I know that I'm probably in a good spot. I don't have to scroll through it because it gives me that number. I wish it would do that for weapon enhancers because it would just be a lot easier to be able to see. So I'm probably pretty good on memory enhancers. I will probably pick up a couple just at the end if I have nothing else to spend my currency on, but that does give me an idea of, hey, you know, I don't necessarily have to worry too much about my memory enhancers. Alrighty, so now we have our list. We're going to go into the shop here and we're going to get an idea of what we can kind of prioritize. So there's a couple things to kind of consider when you're going in here. So even though you may need something like, you know, EXPs, or you need like the overclocking A material, what you kind of need to know though is that this is a very low amount in comparison to something like this. So for example, you get 4 boxes of these, it costs 25 currency. This one you get 5 boxes and it costs 8. So this is probably going to be a lot easier to grind out, especially at the end. Even though you may need these right at the beginning, it is kind of considerate to kind of go in here and see what exactly everything costs and what you can kind of expect to get from that. So first and foremost, if you need cogs, I do recommend getting cogs first and foremost because it costs 33 and you get 100,000. 100,000 seems like a lot, so you can get quite a bit of these and kind of get to 1 million, 2 million very, very easily. But it does cost quite a bit of currency, but it's just something that I always consider first because you cannot do anything in the game without the cogs. So essentially, if you have like 1 million weapon enhancers or 1 million overclocking material, that is useless unless you have the cogs to be able to do anything. The next thing is going to be overclocking B, mainly because it is 25 and you only get a 4-pack. This is going to be something that is a little less easier to grind. Obviously, it costs a little bit more. So if you need overclocking B material, this is something that I would kind of work on after your cogs if you're in a good spot for your cogs. And so even if you do need like the A version of it, I would say that it's a little bit less of a priority because it costs a little less and you do get a little bit more bang for your buck. So I would grind the higher items first. So the next thing is going to be EXP pods. This is something that a lot of people sleep on. They don't realize how much it really costs to do your EXPs and how much it costs to get a character all the way from level 1 to 70 or to whatever level your account is. it costs quite a bit, especially when it starts to escalate and once you get to those higher levels. So this is something that I always consider. You only get 3 of them for 25, so it's something that you kind of want to work on, especially if you don't have a lot of them. So the next thing is going to be enhancers. So enhancers, these two, I would say that the weapon enhancers obviously cost a little bit more and you get a little bit less. Now they do a little bit more bang for your buck because you don't have to do a bunch of weapons. Essentially, whenever the memory enhancers come into play, it's the fact that you have to do quite a bit of stuff for all of your memories, because again, you have 6 slots, whereas you only have 1 slot for your weapon, assuming that you're only working on 1 weapon at a time for each character. So this is going to be something that I would kind of grab at the beginning because it's a little bit easier. Like I said, you're only working on 1 weapon, and then I would go into those memory enhancers depending on which one you have more of. So obviously, if you have weapon enhancers, you feel like you're in a good spot, then work on the memory enhancers and vice versa. Now, the memory enhancers are 18 for 5, so it is quite good, but the fact is you have to work on quite a bit of your memories, so it kind of gets a little bit steep, especially when you're kind of doing every 6 slot essentially, and you're trying to get everything kind of boosted to the right level. So the last thing, like I said, is going to be these 2 right here. So skill points are something that a lot of you probably have a lot of because you grind it through the story. You get it from all kind of various places. So this is something that I would check to make sure that you have a lot of. You can essentially just go in here, go to your character, and then you can go to skills, and you can see, click on a skill, you can see how many you have. That is the fastest way that I know essentially to kind of go through it. I'm pretty sure you could probably see it in your items as well, but then you can kind of get an idea. Now, like I said, this is going to be the last thing that I kind of prioritize because again, it only costs 8 and you get 5. So it is kind of one of those things that I will probably just dump a lot of my stuff into at the very end if I have some leftover currency and I'm sitting pretty well for everything else. So the next thing I want to talk about is just kind of a quick note. I've seen a lot of people talking about going into your recycle shop and using the memory shards here for Henson. So I just don't really recommend that right now because when Esbianca comes out, because if you guys don't know, Henson is essentially Esbianca's memory. You will have enormous amounts of time to get Henson. You will be able to get all this stuff. I know it seems like it's kind of one of those things, well, I might as well get ahead. I understand that, but essentially whenever you jump through the shop, you are going to be grinding for that first half of the event no matter what, and you're going to have a lot of time to kind of work on getting the Henson. So what I would recommend is grabbing the R ones if you need them. Some of these other memories that maybe you need some for your supports, Istina, stuff like Frederick, all that kind of stuff that you maybe don't have for your supports, and start building that out with these shards. I would not worry about something that you can work on in the event because like I said, you will have more than enough time to jump in here and grab those shards. That's just something that I recommend because I've seen a lot of people talking about it and kind of getting like, a head start there. That is the one thing that I would recommend not getting a head start because you have a lot of time to kind of work on those memories. The next part I'm going to be talking about is BC. So in case you need a little bit of a pick-me-up when it comes to your BC, it looks like you're not going to quite make it. Make sure to go through here and see that the story, make sure that you've done your story because a lot of you have probably been focusing on the event and maybe you've neglected the story. Make sure to kind of go through here. Yes, it costs stamina, but you do get quite a bit of rewards for BC, and you can see that you get enhancers, EXPs, and cogs. So it's not completely worthless. You do get a little bit more for that 15 stamina if you're willing to get the BC and stuff like that. Also, make sure to do the hidden. This is something to kind of work on. Even if you're not all the way through the story, maybe you're stuck at some point, you can start to work on the hidden. Yes, it costs 24 stamina, but again, you're getting BC, memory enhancers, and stuff like that, and cogs. So it is not totally useless to be able to do that. Another thing to kind of work on if you are willing is going to be strongholds. This does cost stamina as well. And you can see that every mission gives you 50 at the cost of 12 stamina, and you do get a couple of rewards. Again, these rewards aren't going to be really worth it. What we're looking for is the BC if you were kind of struggling with your BC overall because it's going to be 50. Now, the thing that I think everybody should work on because it does not cost stamina is going to be Golden Vortex. This is something that a lot of people, including myself, have kind of slept on. Each chapter gives you a lot of BC, okay? So it's going to be 300 BC through the entire thing. And you can see you get some cogs and some different materials as well. So this is something to kind of work on because each stage also gives you cogs and gives you various rewards. None of these stages actually give you BC. It's just whenever you complete the entire chapter, that is where you're going to get the bulk of your BC. So if you do all 3 that are all 4 of the chapters, you'll actually have 12,000 or 1,200 BC. So none of this costs stamina either. You can kind of go through it whenever you want. And it's just something to kind of work on as you're kind of working on your event. So last little couple parts here, talking about the interlude. I know a lot of people are kind of saying interlude is worth it. In my opinion right now, I just don't really think so, mainly because unless you are kind of really grinding out Ayla for free, this would be the only time that I really work on the interlude right now, mainly because it does cost stamina. It costs 30 per, which is essentially a run that you can do in the event. So you are kind of risking that essentially if you want to go from there. So I don't personally think the interlude is worth it right now. You will have time with the interlude at any point, unless, like I said, you were really grinding for Ayla and you want to get her for free. That is what I recommend. And then the last thing here is going to be the Tower of Babel. A lot of you guys have probably been sleeping on this as well, because I have, you can see that I'm at level 80, but these missions right here give quite a bit of stuff. You can see memory chips or memory shards anyway. And there's just a lot of stuff that you can grab from here and stuff that you really want to work on. So make sure to kind of go through here in the Tower of Babel, try to get the highest that you can. I've recently ran into a couple of comments that have said that the better kind of way to run this is try to get a large level on one of the things that you can do. Use your best units, try to get this as high as you can, and then kind of substitute it for the other levels. Do not try to do the 20 per 5 because that is going to be very hard and it's going to be spread very thin when it comes to your team. So just try to kind of work the way that I've been kind of doing, where I did 41 here, and I'm kind of trying to get these two, because if I can get them 10 more, I would be fine. Or if I can get this one 10 more, maybe these other ones 5 more, I'd be in a decent spot for that 100 there. So that's just something I really want to recommend on the back end here. So anyway, guys, that is going to go ahead and leave it there. I will be covering Internal Engine when it comes out, and I will be talking about, you know, what stages to grind and all the different things around the shop like we normally do, and put it in an Excel sheet. But I will see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Peace.